There are several reasons for China to invest in Africa, as it's always been a resource-rich continent. China states that they will not allow Africa to be left ignored. African economies provide another sensible choice to take advantage of growth opportunities for political investment returns. The investment in Africa will allow for both parties to grow. However, China's investments may still be motivated only by their self-interest. Sri Lanka, for example, was left with no choice but to lease their Hambantota port for 99 years for China's Belt and Road Initiative after failure to pay back the loan. With the continuing crisis in the Middle East, oil has become even more a commodity. China, however, is moving ahead of the rest of the world with their ties to African countries with large oil holdings. In addition to oil, Africa supplies a wide range of raw materials to China: 90% of cobalt, 35% of manganese, 30% of tantalum, and 5% of China's hardwood timber comes from Africa. China also needs Africa's political support with its conflict with Taiwan. Most African nations are members of the UN. More than one-fourth of the UN's 193 members support China against Taiwan. Another great incentive for China's investment is the Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative, also known as One Belt, One Road, is China's vision for reshaping its global engagements. The road spans 3 continents and touches 60% of the world's population, accounting for 30% of the world's GDP and 75% of its energy reserves. The road also increases China's control of critical global supply chains and gives the country the ability to redirect the flow of international trade. China has been criticized starting this initiative as it is expanding their military agenda and political influence campaigns, carrying the belief of authoritarianism and use of telecommunications technology to survive other governments. Now for predictions over this issue. China will continue to fund projects to Africa as a means of power. China has become a central player in Africa's urbanization procedure, and a huge percentage of the continent's infrastructure initiatives are being driven by Chinese companies or backed by Chinese funding. This takes forms of railroads, hospitals, universities, and stadiums. Africa has currently overpassed Asia as one of China's largest markets for overseas construction contracts. The Belt and Road Africa Infrastructure Development Fund was over $1 billion, and the Africa aid package provided by China was $60 billion. Because of the massive investments implemented by China, it's most likely that Africa will continue swaying to the east as economic ties with China become stronger. Infrastructure. Collectively, the countries of Africa would need to spend $130 to $170 billion per year to meet their infrastructure needs. This is why they admire China for its support in advancing their infrastructure with railroads, highways, and airports.